Thanks for joining us today on CCnDoc Talk, where we talk about everything under the sun. You never know quite what you're going to get, but you'll always be entertained. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Yes, it's February, but for us, it is a Happy New Year because we just arrived home from 3 months of travel. Well, almost 3 months, 10 weeks of travel. We were on the road from...
Which is about 9 weeks too long. No.
We were on the road on the hashtag Holiday Tour 2023. It should have been the Holiday Family Tour 2023. And
actually, it was wonderful.
November 10th, and we actually saw 22 family members during that time. If you want to catch up on our exciting adventures during that time, including a kitchen remodel at my mom's house, then you can catch us at CCnDoc on social media.
DOC.
Yes, CCnDoc.
Keep going. CC
Anyway,
and
you can
DOC. Got it.
You got it better. Go.
Got it. Back to you.
The N is not an and, it's an N. The doc is a DOC.
Perfect.
CCnDoc.
I think they got it.
Social media. Anyway. All right. So
what social media?
Interesting. No. I can see exactly how this podcast is going to go this morning. Oh my God. All right. So interestingly enough, our friend who is, how old is Peg?
90.
89. She's 89.
89?
Yes, because
yeah,
they're planning the 90th. So our 89-year-old friend Peg moved this year, and she bequeathed us a lot of books and materials. And within that was this little teeny tiny mini course for healing relationships and bringing about peace of mind by...
From 1967 or something like that.
I have no idea how old it is.
It's not new, but...
By Gerald G. Jampolsky, MD. To give is to receive. So anyway, we were reading through this little thing this morning.
Is a typical morning for us when we're back at home.
I know, it's kind of crazy. And by the way, we are thrilled to be home and hibernating again. Yay. Although it was a fabulous trip and it was a wonderful time spending much needed, much long overdue time with family members. And so we really did enjoy that.
Agreed.
Hope all of you had a wonderful holiday as well. So anyway, we were reading the getting and giving part of this booklet. And it says, it is important to remember that we all have everything we need now and that the essence of our being is love. If we think we need to get something from another person, we will love that person when we get what we think we want. And we will hate that person when we do not. We frequently have love-hate relationships. We frequently have love-hate relationships in which we find ourselves trading conditional love. The getting motivation leads to conflict and expressions of hostility towards others and ourselves. On the other hand, the giving motivation leads to a sense of inner peace and joy that is unrelated to time. Giving means extending one's love with no conditions, no expectations, and no boundaries, i.e., unconditional love. Peace of mind occurs, therefore, when we put all of our attention into giving and have no desire to get anything from or to change another person. And this sparked a discussion because, and this is exactly how podcasts happen, because I said, what I always struggle with in the discussion of unconditional love is that it never goes that step further to explain what you're supposed to do when you can finally get to a place of unconditional love for a person who may be someone who's been very challenging in your life, or you've always had a challenging relationship with. And you finally, and it's not you, Doc, and you finally get to that place in your life where you can have that unconditional love for them. However, they still have very negative energy. And when you're around them, especially if you're somebody like me, who's an empath or an HSP, highly sensitive person, you still feel that and have a hard time not taking it on. And so what I struggle with in these discussions of unconditional love is that we don't tell people that while the goal is truly to have unconditional love for everybody, that's sort of live and let live mentality, that we don't say, and it's also okay to not put yourself in the hot
exposure.
Yeah, to limit your exposure all the time. Because if you go back to one of our original podcasts, about real colors, the blues of the world who are all about the heart and taking care of others, almost to the expense of themselves, they will give and give and give literally until it hurts them. And they would immediately take this at face value, very literally, and say, all right, well, I guess I just have to keep
sucking it up.
Yeah, I have to keep sucking it up, putting up with their shit all the time. Well, and I don't think that that's the right way to look at this. And so that led to us starting a discussion, which led to Doc saying, I think we just need to turn on the mics. And so now I've talked a lot. So I'm going to punt to you for a second.
Well, I'm going to go back and put it into a different context. And we're going to break a little of this down because, this is kind of like when somebody says, hey, to be healthy, you need to eat, you need to be on a diet and you need to exercise.
You need to eat right, exercise, get enough sleep.
Right. Eat less, exercise more. Right. And it's like, well, that doesn't really work for me. Right. And if you were to break it down specifically into what would work for that person to be able to live a healthy lifestyle and define it from where they're at and what meets their needs and their daily habits and whatever, then they could figure out some of the parts and pieces of it. But you're right, they just give this lofty headline, so you just need to love
everybody unconditionally
and
just
good luck to you,
right?
Just go back in there and spend time with all those family members and love unconditionally, have no expectations, and whatever you see, just love, right?
Right. And you know what, that happened, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. That happens so much more when you're in family situations, because if it's not family, most of those people, you tend to gravitate away from them over time, right? The people with the bad energy, the people, who aren't really the good friends, we just choose not to spend time with them anymore. But in family situations, sometimes when you have those people, you can't just opt out, right?
Right.
I mean, some people do, and that's a tough thing to do. I got to give credit to anybody who does find a way to
pure forgiveness and love,
or to just to take themselves out of the equation altogether, who really have the strength to do that. But some of these situations are minor anyway. So I think it is much harder to do with family. So back to your point.
I think it is, and I'm going to go back to, and then we're going to come back to this. And I, no matter how much work you put into yourself and to advance yourself and to be a better person, all you have to do is go spend time with family, and there are certain things that ancestral DNA just kind of like rears itself, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that explain a lot in terms of how we behave, and the good and the bad, right? And so you take a look at things, but I think they're saying that ancestral DNA goes back like 14 generations. I mean, this is like a couple hundred years.
These are people that you don't even know that affect who you are today.
So we have ancestral DNA about how we communicate, how we think, what we look for. If there's in your ancestral DNA, you're always looking for problems. No matter what good there is in your world, you're looking for problems. Or maybe there's ancestral DNA that is just always sees the bright side of life and never really sees the whole picture or something like that. Or maybe there's ancestral DNA of being a caretaker and getting our needs met by being the caretaker, no matter what that means. And so taking a look at some of these things, and it's eye-opening how fast. Again, no matter what amount of work you could do, go spend a week with a family member and it's like, poof, gone. It's like, oh, geez, what happened?
You revert back to
not that it's all bad,
was,
but you just go right back into some of those things, and it's like, wow. So it's eye-opening. So so that brings back us to then what we're talking about. Okay.
And I think the more work you do on yourself and the more you deconstruct, the more glaring it is then when you spend time with family, the dysfunction. So even if you're somebody, let's say you're somebody who, truly didn't think you had any family dysfunction, and then all of a sudden you start doing this work on yourself and you start deconstructing, as soon as you're placed in that situation, you're like, oh boy, we're kind of screwed up here, aren't we? And I know we have family members listening to this podcast, so we certainly don't want that. No family members were harmed in the making of this podcast. And so, it's just,
and we're not like just focusing on the flaws. I mean, it's unbelievable the differences, families that are hugging families versus families that are not hugging families. I mean, there are so many things. And the sentence that stands out in what you read earlier is, if we think we need to get something from another person, we will love that person when we get what we think we want, and we will hate that person when we do not, right? And so that brings us right to, we go back to these family meetings, or family get-togethers, and we still want we still have the original expectations of being the good daughter or the good son or the good person, or we still have expectations about what we need from our other family members, whether they're their parents or whether they're siblings or aunts or uncles. It's really rooted in when you're a child of what we need from these people.
So we have unrealistic expectations.
We have unrealistic expectations as an adult because we're bringing in what happened, the need that we had that we didn't know we had as a child.
So in some ways, it's really our own damn fault because we go in with unrealistic expectations that people are going to live up to that, and we have I'm struggling.
I think
a little
many
bit
are
with
unconscious expectations.
Well, sure, absolutely, and I'm struggling a little bit that we're focusing this on family because I really see it as a much bigger.
Well, that's because we just
thing, because it's this whole idea
it's easier to see some of this with family,
right,
or close friends.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're right.
Because friends, you can move. If a friend's not meeting your needs or your expectations or unconditional love, you move on from them.
Right.
Right. They're friends for a reason, friends for a season,
right,
and you can move on. I mean, but with family, you don't as easily just move on from that, and it's like a yo-yo. You just have to go right back in there, and
right.
So,
well,
I want to add one more comment if I can.
Yeah.
When we lose somebody, we grieve the loss of that person, friend, family member alike, right? Mm-hmm. We grieve the loss of that person. But what we grieve the most is the loss of the relationship that we wanted to have.
Mm-hmm.
You grieve the possibility of the expectation of what you wanted the relationship to be.
Well, because I don't know that it's an and, but more of an or, sometimes I think you look back and you think of all the things that you wish that you had done differently.
Right.
So there's that guilt factor involved, right? And then, in some ways the guilt sort of ties into this whole idea of getting and giving and unconditional love. I was thinking about this on a larger scale. The world that we live in right now is so polarized, and certainly the idea of loving unconditionally some of our, I'll just say politicians, is almost offensive, and I mean that's probably one of the most challenging things that I could challenge myself with now, is to love some of these politicians who are very anti-LGBT or things like that. And yet I understand the concept of unconditional love, and I think that in some cases I can do that pretty well, I still think it's difficult to discern, if I love somebody unconditionally, does that mean that I should be able to stand in front of a person who has either terrible energy emanating from them or who in their own right is not, reciprocating with the unconditional love, and who might tear me down on a regular basis? Am I truly meant to stand there in their presence and just be okay with that and somehow be at peace with that? Or is it okay for me to say, you know what, you do you, but I'm going to stand over here as far away from you as I possibly can and maybe limit my exposure to you because it's not good for my psyche or my subconscious or whatever. I guess I'm kind of bringing in that metaphysical.
How do you protect yourself in the process of unconditional love when you really don't feel this person is deserving of your unconditional love? Because, you do, but you try, but it's just that there's such a difference in thought.
Well, I don't even know if it's so much that they're not deserving. I mean,
they are deserving, but
theoretically, everybody deserves unconditional love. So I can't say, it's like a better than or not.
Yeah, but they can get it from somebody else.
Yeah.
All right, let me go back to reading this. Okay. We frequently have love-hate relationships in which we find ourselves trading conditional love, right? I mean, I would love you if you had a different perspective or a different belief system or whatever it is, so you have it conditional. But the getting motivation leads to conflict and expressions of hostility towards ourselves and others. And so, if you really aren't getting your needs met, different belief systems, different rights, different things, whatever it is, it leads to expressions of hostility. And sometimes then because you don't conditionally love this person, then you feel like, you're not doing your part in loving them unconditionally because now you have opinions or whatever it is. So that deep, there's a little bit of internal conflict that surfaces. You should just love and,
Well,
whatever.
And I think the other thing that this was suggesting is that you're ideally supposed to love yourself enough to be able to meet your own needs without having to go outside of yourself to have, so in other words, your love relationships should not be a give and take in the sense of, you give me what I want, I love you. You don't give me what I want, I hate you. It should be I can take care of myself and my own needs. I just love you because I love you. But then my thing is, I think we should take that a step further and say, but do I choose to love you? And by that love you, I don't mean like I may choose to love everybody unconditionally, but do I choose to love you and give you the gift of my time because that's good for both of us, or because that's what we want to do? Or is it okay? And I think the answer is yes. Is it okay to say, you know what? I just can't spend that time with you,
and I think, okay, as long as you,
I feel like I'm playing devil's advocate here for the people who can't stand up to other people and can't say no, right?
Well, I mean, okay,
we can't have boundaries.
Like, the people that really think differently than us, I'd rather know less about them and less about their thoughts and opinions and belief system, because then if I am love and I emanate love, I can just have that love transcend over to them. But I want to know less about you.
I don't want to know the details.
That's why I don't want to know the details, right? And by the way, when you said, it's not our love relationship isn't tit for tat, we just never defined tat. Okay. So anyway, but it's that, where does the giving then come in? If we just give, like I'm saying, if we're love and we just give love and we emanate love, but less I know about you and your belief system, then it allows me to just give that love, extend that universal love out there, which raises the whole frequency of
back in the day when we didn't have those conversations about, when political conversations were completely taboo at all gatherings, not just family gatherings, but social gatherings. Like back in the day, we didn't tell people who we voted for. And we were almost better off.
So we went from family to political.
Well,
so we need,
I'm just saying, we were almost better off sometimes living in the world where we didn't maybe openly talk about some of this stuff so much, because then we didn't know as much. And then we didn't have things to judge people about.
Right. And we're more of a judging society now. We've learned that, social media and the prevalence of all this information and all that has given us, and the trolls out there and having to defend ourselves. And we're a blaming society. We've learned that there's got to be somebody to blame. Even call customer service anywhere, and it's like, it's your fault. You have to pay for the return, right? I mean, because we're always looking for fault.
Right. I go back to like the blues on the real color spectrum, because what you were saying was you were talking about the giving piece and how giving is truly fulfillment.
Too,
But if you give and give and give, and all somebody else does is take and take and take, or you give and they slap you in the face, either literally or figuratively, you get to a point where, that's where I come up against that. Okay, can I love you unconditionally, but continue to be separate from your energy?
Yeah.
And if I can't protect myself from your energy when I'm standing in front of you, then isn't it okay for me to step way away from that and limit my exposure to you, or set boundaries around that?
Well, and I think it's easy to be able to just, love and let be, or love unconditionally, when it doesn't become personal and affect you, whether it's from a family member or a friend or political rights or something like that. Because all of a sudden, if they're in charge of your rights or access to a bathroom or whatever it is, all of a sudden, how do you love unconditionally when it impacts you personally and it's out of your control? Then you're less likely. And the media doesn't help with all this crap anyway. All right.
Some of these things are like math to me, right? Like back when I was young, I'm not mathletic. For those of you who don't know, I'm really not mathletic. And, I can remember, math was very challenging for me. And I always wanted to know why, right? Like I wanted to know why do you do this like you do this, or whatever. And the teachers would always say, well, that's just because that's how it is with math. It's black or white. And I'm like, but you realize that math really isn't black and white. However, nobody seems to, at least in a teaching setting, nobody seems to be able to tell you like the nuance of that, or nobody wants to explain to you, why 1 + 1 = 2 and why it doesn't equal 5. But, and I feel like sometimes these types of, what is this thing? Philosophies. These types of philosophies do that too. Like they tell you what they tell you what to do, but they give you no freaking clue on how to do it
Right.
or why that's, I mean, they tell you the why. They say because, ultimately it's going to make you a better person. You're going to feel better. You're going to have inner peace. And as somebody who's searching for inner peace, I'm really gravitate towards some of this information, but then I find myself kind of dissecting it and going, but that doesn't make sense to me, just like I did with math.
Yeah. And by the way, your need to know why is part of your ancestral DNA. Just saying, by the way.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Where do we want to go with this? So what do we want to say?
I don't know that we've actually solved anything here.
Well, I don't know that we ever have any solutions to anything because, but really, can you just be at peace, have less expectations, really, or take a look at your expectations and who are they for, right? I mean, if you're looking to get your needs met externally from somebody else, doesn't matter if it's friend or family or a political figure,
right.
Is that, you're not going to get these needs met from them, and you have to do it within. You have to love yourself, and you have to, even with the political situation, right? You have to love yourself enough to know that you're going to be able to figure out or live with whatever the situation it is that you have to live within.
Yeah, or make plans to
be an expat or whatever it is.
Right.
But we have to it all, and let's go back to the very beginning sentence of this, and that is important to remember that we all have everything we need now, and that is the essence of our being, and that the essence of our being is love. And we have that love within us if we love ourselves, and just start there.
My final comment would be, I am a firm believer in loving, in self-love, and meeting your own needs first. Being the person to meet your own needs, and not, seeking external ways of getting my needs met, so to speak. I am also a firm believer in loving some people unconditionally from afar.
We have to put all of our attention into giving and have no desire to get anything from or to change another person. That's the final comment in here.
Yes.
No expectations.
So I find it much easier to have no expectations of people who are incredibly challenging to me from afar. So I can love them unconditionally from afar. That was my...
Well, it tells me we have a little work to do for both of us, don't we?
But I don't think there's anything wrong with that perspective. Limit your exposure to people who are harmful to you. I mean, is that not like a valid response? I really do think that there is a way to love up people unconditionally, but not necessarily put yourself right in the middle of their...
Well, isn't that why they say
vortex?
Don't watch the news.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's harmful to you. So if you want to limit your exposure to things that are harmful to you, spending time with people that really, harm your energy, or get it, so that you don't feel like you can love yourself or them or give unconditionally, limit your exposure to them, and limit your exposure to the news, because, my opinion, that is harmful.
Yeah.
To our psychic and our DNA.
And it's
all opinions anyway.
Right. All of you will have to make your own decisions on this topic. And once again, I don't even know if you can find this anywhere out there, but it's called To Give Is to Receive, Mini Course for Healing Relationships and Bringing About Peace of Mind by Gerald G. Jampolsky, MD.
That was fun. Let's do another one.
These are the
takeaways where you want. Those of you in your car having somebody to discuss, have fun discussing this one.
Welcome to our breakfast conversations. We will see you next time.
Have a great day.
Oh, and welcome to season 3. More in store. Thanks for tuning in to CCnDoc Talk. We'd love for you to follow us on social media at CCnDoc. That's CCnDoc. And you can visit our website at CCnDoc.com. We also take monthly donations to support this broadcast if you're so inclined. We'd love to hear your comments, suggestions, and questions, and we'll do our best to respond. Thanks, and have a fantabulous day.